please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
दिमाग में से ये निकाल दीजिए कि कोई आपकी एग्जाम ले रहा है। दिमाग में ये भर दीजिए आप ही आपके एग्जामिनर हो।
अगले साल हम दोनों के ही बोर्ड की परीक्षा है क्योंकि मेरे 12वीं की परीक्षा है और आपके लोकसभा चुनाव है। तो क्या आपकी इस पे पूरी तैयारी है?
अगर मैं आपका टीचर होता तो मैं आपको गाइड करता कि आप जर्नलिज्म में जाइए।
While Prime Minister Narendra Modi holds a Pariksha Pe Charcha with school students, shares the secrets of his concentration as they gear up for their annual exams. Good evening. Thanks for joining us on India Business Hour. I'm Shireen Bhan. Our top focus continues to be Punjab National Bank. It's been 3 days since the Punjab National Bank disclosed that a fraud worth 11,400 crore rupees had allegedly been perpetrated by jeweler Nirav Modi and insiders at a Mumbai branch. The stock has been punished for the third straight session, now hitting a 52-week low. Meanwhile, investigative agencies keeping the pressure on, and now the Enforcement Directorate has issued summons to Nirav Modi and Mehul Choksi and claims that total seizures of gems and jewellery have now crossed 5,600 crore rupees. There is a question mark on this number. Independent evaluation has so far not been conducted. Also, the CBI has filed a fresh FIR against Gitanjali Group companies, and the taxman has attached 29 properties and 105 bank accounts of Nirav Modi Group companies. That's not all. We learned that Nirav Modi may currently be in New York. The Ministry of External Affairs has suspended his passport along with that of Mehul Choksi for 4 weeks. CBI sources tell Network 18 it may also look into the role of former RBI Deputy Governor K.C. Chakrabarti. This after a whistleblower's claims that he had written to the Reserve Bank in 2013, that's when Mr. Chakrabarti was in office, alerting the RBI about a loan to Gitanjali Jewellers by Allahabad Bank. Dinesh Dubey, who is a government nominee director on the Allahabad Bank board, says he had dissented against the grant of that loan. When CNBC TV18 reached out to K.C. Chakrabarti, he said, and I quote, "I do not recall anything related to the PNB scam during my tenure." Meanwhile, banks have come out with details of their exposure to the scam. Bank of Baroda has told CNBC TV18 that they don't believe the exposure is more than 425 to 450 crores. SBI disclosing it has an exposure of $212 million. That's about 1,360 crore rupees. Well, those are the top developments in the PNB fraud case today. Let's go across to our colleague Sanjay Suri, who joins us from Antwerp in Belgium, the diamond capital of the world and the place where Nirav Modi was raised. Incidentally, his brother Nishal is also a citizen of Belgium. Sanjay, you've been speaking to people in the sizable Indian community there. What have you learned so far?
Well, this here is Hovenierstraat, the very heart of the diamond business district here in Antwerp. This is the city where Nirav grew up, grew into the family trade in diamonds, and that family trade continues. His father is a well-established diamond trader here in Antwerp and continues to trade, and Nirav continues to engage in the wholesale business through him and his business. So that Antwerp link certainly has continued over these many years, though Nirav has branched out into the designing of jewelry and then into financing it in the dubious ways that we have seen. But here, the few hundred Gujarati families who have really taken charge of the wholesale diamond business here appear a little reluctant to talk about Nirav. What they do tell us is that they don't want to say anything because they don't know the facts of the case. But the fact is that there is a tendency to close around one another. It is a small community that has always worked very closely together and lived very closely together. They like to close ranks as they see it and not speak about their own outside. But beyond that, the authorities here seem a little embarrassed about the Antwerp connection of this wanted man. They're anxious to present that Antwerp is not his city, that he has nothing to do with it. But of course, that is their point of view. They don't want their name sullied in this whole controversy. But the people here in Antwerp, whether it is the authorities or the traders, really are all focused on this Nirav case and very keenly watching where the case goes and where he goes.
Joining us now is Rajiv Chandrasekhar, MP of the Rajya Sabha. Rajiv, appreciate you joining us here on CNBC TV18. You know, you've been a part of Parliamentary Committee, Rajiv, and you've raised the issue of involvement of bank officials in fraud cases going all the way back to, I think, 2011, I think it was, when you had raised that question in Parliament. Now, I want to, you know, this is not about the UPA government, this is not about the NDA government, this is about what needs to be done now to address the situation. This is probably not the last time that we're going to have a conversation about bank frauds. What is the answer, Rajiv?
No, so Shireen, I think you know, I'm an entrepreneur who's entered politics, and I have some degree of understanding of the Indian banking system and how corrupt it can get. And in 2012 and 2013, I repeatedly raised this question in Parliament about what we are doing to tighten the systems and controls to prevent frauds and embezzlements. And I used the word frauds and embezzlements.
Yeah.
And I was given the stock answer on both occasions that we are tightening controls, we are bringing in new systems, etc., etc.
Now, on the phone line, joining us is Mr. Hari Prasad, the gentleman who in 2016 wrote to the Prime Minister's office, raised the issue with the highest office in the country. The Prime Minister's office gave details about why he believes that there was fraud at Gitanjali Gems, why this was a scam, why Gitanjali Gems was a case like Subroto Roy and Vijay Mallya. I'm reading from the complaint that Mr. Hari Prasad has sent. Mr. Hari Prasad, if you're here with us on CNBC TV18, sir, on what basis, what was the evidence that you had, sir? What was the reason that you decided to go to the Prime Minister's office when you sent him that letter on the 26th of July 2016?
Well, per se, I didn't have any investigative evidence. When I had a business deal with Choksi for 2 years, I have suffered because of his fraudulent activities. Then I started to study his modus operandi and the way he is managing his balance sheets, where with the fictitious assets, which we could understand by reading their balance sheets over a period of time. Then I have given this information to various investigating agencies such as ED and CBI to look into the technicalities in more serious manner to do the forensic audit so that these irregularities can come out in open. So, but since there was no
What was the response, Mr. Hari Prasad?
From where?
From the ED, from the ROC, from any of the investigative agencies, from the Prime Minister's office when you wrote and reached out to all of them?
See, I didn't get any response from either ED or CIFO or SEBI or other agencies. So finally, I had no choice but to write a letter to PMO, requesting PMO to do the necessary to investigate this matter in serious way.
And did you get a response from the PMO, sir?
Yes, they have acknowledged that. I think it's a system-generated process. They've acknowledged my complaint, and immediately they forwarded my complaint to ROC to look into the matter, because my complaint was about irregularities in balance sheets and fictitious assets and all, which were based on my understanding of the business structure. So then ROC did not take any action. So I don't know the reasons why ROC did not take any action. So that is the reason that I was quite upset with it.
Did you, in your letter, sir, the complaint and a copy of the complaint that I have, it talks about Mehul Choksi, Gitanjali Gems. It doesn't talk about Nirav Modi, but there are close links between the two. Did you have any reason to believe that Nirav Modi may also have been involved in some form or fashion?
No, ma'am. I had no idea about Nirav Modi, and I never had any business dealings with Nirav Modi. I only had a business dealing with Gitanjali Group and Mehul Choksi.
Okay. You know, Mr. Prasad, before I let you go, sir, today we've got a situation where Nirav Modi has clearly fled the country. He is most likely in New York. How does that make you feel for somebody who has been reaching out to investigating agencies, to the government, to regulators for almost 2 years now? You know, I would imagine you're beyond disappointed.
That's true.
Mr. Prasad, appreciate you joining us. That is the whistleblower who wrote not just to the Prime Minister's office, but also to several regulatory agencies, raising the issue of Gitanjali Gems and Mehul Choksi in July of 2016. Rajiv Chandrasekhar, I want to get your comments on what you just heard. I mean, there is a systematic failure. It is not just an operational failure at the level of Punjab National Bank. There is a systematic failure here.
No, Shireen, I mean, I think we need to be little clear about this. What the whistleblower, Mr. Hari Prakash, is saying is that he alleged that there was something wrong with the Gitanjali Gems balance sheet. And I'm not aware if that is true or not, and I'm assuming somebody should investigate into that. But where we are today is an issue of fake LOUs and fraudulently obtaining loans from a bank, which is very different from what the gentleman just talked about.
It's exactly the same.
Subverting
it's exactly the same. It's exactly the same, Rajiv Chandrasekhar. I'm reading out to you from the annexures that have been sent by the complainant. This person, he says in the complaint, this person has siphoned out thousands of crores out of India. List of 31 banks that have extended loans to this group. Tax liabilities increasing by the year. The consolidated balance sheet says his tangible assets are very, very small. Loans to 9,700 crores. You can see that most of the Indian subsidiaries are in losses and foreign subsidiaries are in profit. I mean, I'm reading out from the complaint and the annexures that have been sent.
Okay, I'm not, yeah. No, so I haven't seen all this. I'm just referring to the conversation he just had with you, so I don't have all the details. I'm referring to what is clearly available to us in the public domain, which is that Punjab National Bank has been ripped off 11,400 crores or close to $2 billion through a process of fraudulent LOUs. And that is clearly a breakdown of the bank's own risk management, liability management, financial reporting system. Everything about a bank is about having checks and balances to manage risk. And if a deputy manager can go ahead and issue LOUs for $2 billion, then the entire concept of risk management in a public sector bank needs to be assessed from ground up.
Rajiv Chandrasekhar, always a pleasure. Thanks very much. Joining us now is Leo Puri, the Managing Director of UTI Asset Management. Mr. Puri, appreciate you joining us. I don't know if you caught the last part of my conversation with Rajiv Chandrasekhar, where he talked about the fact that we need a new model. What do we need, Mr. Puri? You know, I'm looking at Parliament papers. This fraud allegedly started in 2011. This states very clearly, during 2010-2011, the RBI took several measures to strengthen the frauds monitoring mechanism in banks and so on and so forth. The RBI, via its circular dated 026/2011, advised banks to suitably modify their policies, streamline operating framework. And yet we're talking about a situation where apparently 2 junior officials have been able to pull off something worth 11,400 crores.
Well, Shireen, I did catch the last part of the conversation with Rajiv Chandrasekhar, and I think the point was made as to whether this was a systemic or a specific with Rajiv Chandrasekhar, and I think the point was made as to whether this was a systemic or a specific problem. And there's no doubt in my mind whatsoever that this is a very deep-rooted systemic issue. This is really not about PNB or 2 junior officials at all. This is very deep-rooted, very systemic. And if you'll just give me a minute, I'll give you my perspective on what I hope this will turn out to be a cathartic moment, if you like, for finally addressing the deep-rooted rot, systemic rot that we've created in our banking system. So fundamentally, while we nationalize the banks with noble aims of essentially driving financial inclusion, in the event, and this has been true for more than 2 decades, probably longer, you in effect had a form of reverse capture due to the patronage system which got established in terms of how the then nationalized banks were subsequently governed. And when you create a patronage system which involves the political class, the bureaucracy, bank management, and our entrepreneurs, essentially you create channels for essentially delivering mutual benefit, which essentially harden over time. And I think on all sides there's been a way of doing business whereby it has for long been assumed that the purpose of the banks and public sector banks in particular was to make available capital, low-cost capital. In some cases, the presumption was permanent capital towards people who were broadly viewed as being in favor. Not all of this was corrupt or, you know, arguably nefarious. Some of it was simply patronage. And patronage, I use the term in a neutral sense, but it certainly meant that there was an assumption that there would be a high level of guidance as to how these scarce resources would get channeled. And it's human nature that once you perceive that, you start to work these networks of patronage. And that infects the entire system. That's a dangerous and metastasizing sort of cancer that spreads through the system, where now you have patronage, which essentially determines how people are appointed to the leadership of these institutions. In order to earn the right to lead these institutions, they need to earn the trust of those who grant the patronage. In order to earn that trust, you have to be viewed as reliable in terms of not breaking the code as to how the system works. So actually we have deeply embedded, and that's why I stress the rot is very, very deep. This is not about PNB at all. This could have happened in any bank. And I fear will continue to happen as long as you have a system where the government owns and runs a patronage network through the public sector banking system.
You preempted my question
this has been going on for 20 years.
You preempted my question, sir. Yes, you preempted the question that I asked Rajiv Chandrasekhar, and let me put that to you as well. You know, one talks about the fact that if you list a government-owned entity, it will bring in better compliance. They will have to deal with the norms that a listed entity needs to deal with. I mean, these are listed banks. It's the second largest bank. So as you pointed out, it's not a PNB issue. It's a systemic issue. It's an issue of this way that these banks have been operating and they're structured. Is privatization then, is disinvestment, where government control is below 51%, then the answer, Leo Puri?
I think it is certainly a necessary condition. It may or may not on its own be sufficient, but it's absolutely necessary. Listing, by the way, on its own doesn't change anything. Having a minority shareholding where you bring in other investors but continue to have a dominant system of patronage left intact is hardly going to change the quality of governance. And unless you change the quality of governance, that has led to the second-order issues around difficulty of attracting talent, difficulty of building meritocracy, difficulty of creating professionalism in institutions. And I think that's what's essentially happened here. So now, would it be sufficient? Well, of course, you can point to many examples in private sector banks which are not immune altogether from similarly seeing or facing accusations of fraud or missteps or operating risk failures. So it won't solve the problem entirely. But I think it's also quite clear that whereas, yes, you can point to examples where private sector banks have actually fallen prey to some of those tendencies, it has, in those cases, much more been the exception rather than the rule. Whereas, unfortunately, it seems to be almost taken for granted within the public sector banking system that these issues will arise.
Right. Leo Puri, always a pleasure. Appreciate you joining us here on CNBC TV18 with your thoughts. Well, the other big story that we are tracking this Friday evening, the Supreme Court today delivering its verdict in the 122-year-old Kaveri dispute case that involves Tamil Nadu and Karnataka. The verdict could further widen the rift between the two southern states, and here's why. The apex court has directed Karnataka to release approximately 177,000 million cubic feet of Kaveri water to Tamil Nadu. This is almost 15,000 million cubic feet lesser than what was allowed to them by the tribunal in 2007. And that's not all. The Supreme Court has also allocated Karnataka a higher share of Kaveri water. Karnataka's increased share takes care of the drinking water problems in Bengaluru. Political parties in Karnataka overjoyed. The verdict also comes as a shot in the arm for the Siddaramaiah government just ahead of the state polls. Political parties in Tamil Nadu, meanwhile, expressing their shock over the verdict. The DMK has accused the ruling AIADMK government of spoiling things for political gains.
See, I don't see it as a verdict giving 14 TMC more to Karnataka. I see it as a verdict which has reduced 14 TMC to Tamil Nadu. To that extent, it's a great injustice done to us. And with this verdict, I think the future of farmers in Tamil Nadu is something which we'll have to worry a lot.
The verdict can be welcomed on two aspects. One is the constitution of the Kaveri Management Board, and second is that rivers cannot be claimed as the credit of one particular state. We don't interfere or we don't comment anything upon the requirement of Karnataka, but we demand what we need, because already our crops have failed. Our farmers are committing suicide.
It's time for us to head into a break, but coming up right after that.
What technology you want to adopt should be left to the industry. Why should the government get into the business of technology?
The government switches lanes, gives up on moving to an all-electric vehicle ecosystem. Why the U-turn? An exclusive interaction with Niti Ayog's Amitabh Kant when we return.
Very good evening. Welcome back. You're watching IBH, India Business Hour. Let's shift focus now to an exclusive news. Sources tell CNBC TV18 that Tata Steel has emerged as the highest bidder to buy Bhushan Steel. The company has offered a package of 40,000 crore rupees. Ritu Singh now joins us with more details. Ritu, what other details are you picking up?
That's right. We understand from sources Tata Steel has emerged the winner when it comes to acquiring Bhushan Steel, one of the most sought-after assets currently undergoing insolvency proceedings. We understand from our sources in the banking industry that Tata Steel's offer was a good 5,000 crore rupees higher than that offered by JSW and Piramal Consortium. Remember, CNBC TV18 had earlier reported that Tata Steel and JSW Piramal Consortium were the only two bidders that had submitted bids to acquire Bhushan Steel. Now, we understand from sources that this 40,000 crore package that has been offered by Tata Steel includes a cash payment of 35,200 crores to the financial creditors of the company and another 1,200 crore rupees to the operational creditors of the company. It also includes, offers for equity infusion and some working capital also in the company. We understand that, given this offer of Tata Steel, the haircut that the banks will have to take will be roughly about 27% is what is estimated. The committee of creditors will meet again to see if the offer can be improved, but as of now, Tata Steel stands as the highest bidder for Bhushan Steel's assets. We also understand that the takeover plan for Bhushan Steel is still subject to clearance by the NCLT, but as of now, Tata Steel is the highest bidder. Remember, Bhushan Steel has a debt of 56,004 crore rupees. Those are the claims that is from the financial creditors, and the debt on the books is roughly about 42,000 crore rupees.
Well, few issues have evoked as much dismay, confusion, optimism and ambition as the government's push towards electrification of cars. Over the last 18 months, the BJP-led government has shown remarkable zeal and drive to make India a full electric car market in record time. Now, let's bring you up to speed with the key developments and statements made by various cabinet ministers over the last year and a half on this issue. It all picked up pace in April last year. That's when the then Power Minister Piyush Goyal proposed the first move towards electric vehicles. This is what he said, and I quote, "We are going to introduce electric vehicles in a very big way. We're going to make electric vehicles self-sufficient like the Unnat Jyoti by affordable LEDs for all. The idea is that by 2030, not a single petrol or diesel car should be sold in the country," unquote. A month later, that's in May 2017, the government announced a plan to introduce swappable batteries to make the adaptation to EVs cheaper and easy. To kick things in action, the government decided to procure about 10,000 electric vehicles in October of 2017. Government-owned energy service company Energy Efficiency Services Limited chose Tata Motors and Mahindra to supply 500 electric vehicles in phase 1. Now, just 1 month after that, Transport Minister Nitin Gadkari made headlines by rejecting the idea of swappable batteries. The minister felt that battery swapping was not a viable option for India. However, the momentum to electrify our mobility continued. The same month, that's November of 2017, Niti Ayog, along with Rocky Mountain Institute, released a report on electric vehicles. The report proposed a three-phase approach for EV adoption by 2032. Now, last month, Transport Minister Nitin Gadkari was quoted as saying that Niti Ayog's electric vehicle policy was awaiting clearance from the cabinet. But just a month later, that's yesterday, a major twist came. with Gadkari announcing that there is in fact no need for a policy on electric vehicles. He went on to say that an action plan is already in place. So what exactly is India's status when it comes to shifting to electric vehicles? Joining us to discuss all of that and more is the CEO of the Niti Aayog, Mr. Amitabh Kant. Mr. Kant, appreciators when it comes to shifting to electric vehicles. Joining us to discuss all of that and more is the CEO of the Niti Aayog, Mr. Amitabh Kant. Mr. Kant, appreciate you joining us here on CNBC TV18. Sir, if I could start by asking you to explain to us, and I just for the benefit of all of our viewers, recap what has happened over the past year and a half. From the first statement made by the then Power Minister Piyush Goyal to the statement made by Mr. Nitin Gadkari yesterday saying that India does not need an EV policy, we have an action plan. What is the difference between an EV policy and an action plan, Mr. Kant?
So, Shireen, what the minister said is that there is actually a lot of disruption happening in this sector. There are new technologies coming in every day. What was a lot of work went in for hybrid, then EV came in, tomorrow it may be hydrogen. I think similar kind of major radical disruption is taking place in the world of batteries, it's taking place in the world of charging stations, and the view was that we should continue to allow a lot of innovation, a lot of entrepreneurship to take place in all these areas. The problem quite often that happens in government is that we freeze, we are not technology agnostic. We start working on technologies, and in the process we lay down a number of standards by which we inhibit innovation and entrepreneurship to take place. And then what happens is that
Mr. Kant,
government officials...
Mr. Kant, to put this simply...
one second. Then what happens... Yeah, okay. Then what happens
I'm interrupting you to just ask you, sir, very clearly, is the government now no longer forcing only electric mobility? Are you then saying that it's okay to come up with innovations that use biofuels, to move to hybrids as well? Is the government now no longer going to force auto companies to only go electric?
No. What we are saying is that the future belongs to a shared, connected, and zero-emission world. For a better word, a zero-emission world. And our objective should be to lay the outcomes that we want reduction to this level, and we should clearly define that in these 11 of our 20 cities which are most polluted, this is the outcome which we want to reach. What technology you want to adopt should be left to the industry. Why should the government get into the business of technology?
May I appreciate you joining us here on CNBC TV18. That's Amitabh Kant saying that the government is no longer going to push only for electric mobility. They will push for zero-emission mobility. That's the shift that's taken place in government policy.
Policy, to my mind, was not really very relevant, because what would policy say at this stage before industry has put down what its requirements would be? And industry would only be able to say that when they actually start the task of electrification and find out what the problems are in that business.
The important point is that we need this kind of policy decision can't be made overnight. There has to be discussion, debate, and that too in evolving technology, whether it's electric or hybrids or hydrogen or any other alternate fuels. Technology is growing by leaps and bounds. So I think what the government has done is they've assimilated everything and they have come to this conclusion.
Well, staying with news from Motown, the Heavy Industries Ministry has come out with a comprehensive draft automotive policy to support the automotive mission plan of the government. The policy envisages making India a key R&D innovation hub for global auto industry. The draft proposes tax exemptions for automakers on the basis of their R&D spends. It has proposed 100% tax exemption for those automakers whose R&D investments are less than 2% of their turnover and over 250% if investments are more than 4% of their turnover. It has also called setting up of a nodal body for the auto industry with representatives from the Ministries of Finance, Heavy Industry, Road Transport and Commerce, among others. The policy has also called upon the need for developing a comprehensive long-term roadmap for the industry. The draft policy has laid down that by 2030, 75% of all vehicles purchased by the central and state governments must be electric. The Heavy Industries Ministry has given time till the end of this month to seek comments. So that was the auto sector. Quick wrap of the action from the auto space. Let's now shift our focus to the world of digital payments. Well, WhatsApp entry into the Indian digital payment space has ruffled Paytm's feathers. We spoke to Paytm founder Vijay Shekhar Sharma just yesterday, and in that conversation, a visibly miffed Sharma hit out at the retail payment regulator NPCI for allowing WhatsApp Pay to roll out in India without password authentication. He also accused the NPCI of altering the rulebook to favor foreign companies. Today, the NPCI has attempted to soothe frayed nerves, saying that WhatsApp Pay is still in its testing stage, is still in its beta stage, and that the final product will adhere to the same rules set down for Indian players. NPCI says that the full-scale launch will only happen if the broad principles of interoperability are met. We spoke to Bipin Preet Singh, founder and CEO of MobiQuick, and Nikhil Pava, founder and editor at Medianama. Let's listen in to them weighing in on that debate.
Why is WhatsApp getting preferential access to UPI, bypassing some of these norms to create simpler onboarding process for consumers like you and me? So as compared to other apps, WhatsApp had it easy. Nikhil, let me start with you. What's your take on that?
Well, I think so. The way WhatsApp has launched it, it's in a beta stage right now, but they have largely enabled WhatsApp to WhatsApp payments. The ability to pay other people, other UPI IDs is actually separate, and it's very difficult to get to it. It's not a walled garden, but it's kind of close to that right now. But, you know, this is something which we've seen from UPI in the past, from the NPCI, where whenever a new player comes onto UPI, they're given some sort of a carrot, some sort of a preferential treatment where some features are allowed. So even when Google Pays launched, they launched with multiple processing partners, whereas no one before them had that opportunity.
Yes,
so I think
that's a good point, Nikhil.
We have to be conscious of the governance at NPCI here, because it's not an open, UPI is not an open platform.
Right, so that's what you and in fact Bipin have been saying, that UPI was never meant to be an open platform. And let me bring in Bipin here. So do you think that NPCI has carved out loopholes, something that even Nikhil pointed out, right? 2 days before Pays was launched, I think there were some changes that were made to the norms. So does that make it easier for Facebook to launch this service on WhatsApp? Bipin, what's your take on this?
I don't think so. I think, you know, the changes or the restrictions that we are talking about here are non-material. Why I say they are non-material is because if you are using WhatsApp in India, and if you want to send money to somebody else, it's very, very likely, probably 99% likely, that that person is also on WhatsApp. So I don't understand, you know, why there is such a big need for, even if the protocol wants it or desires it, for interoperability. WhatsApp in itself is so huge that, you know, if you do P2P on WhatsApp, it's likely that the other person on the receiving side is going to be on WhatsApp. So that's my specific point on this. But my larger point is that is the same, that, you know, NPCI and WhatsApp have worked together to create an experience which is best for the consumer. And hopefully will lead to a lot of adoption of UPI and thereby adoption of digital payments. So I do not understand who is losing out here. Is the consumer losing out? I don't think so. Is WhatsApp losing out? The answer is no. Is NPCI losing out? The answer is no. Yes, this means more competition.
I know where you're getting with this,
for everybody, including us. But, you know, hey, that's how we have decided to operate in this country, right? We want multiple solutions. We want wallets, we want cards, we want UPI, and, you know, we have not followed a closed ecosystem policy in this country, and we want to let 1,000 flowers bloom. So in my view, we have to look at it from a positive point of view. I think if the restrictions that have been put by WhatsApp as part of this experience are there, and if they help in terms of greater adoption of UPI or makes the experience better.
So it's the scale that you're saying that. I understand what the point that you're trying to make, Bipin.
No, so I have a disagreement there because I don't see UPI as an open platform. In an open platform with an open API, the same features are made available to everybody at the same time. Let's also not forget that companies like Bipin's are not being allowed on UPI. Wallets are not allowed. And I don't understand why. 2 years ago, when we'd spoken with the head of NPCI, then he said that they don't want to allow wallets in at that point in time because banks need a bit of a head start.
Right.
How much more of a head start do they need? Why aren't they allowing wallets on the platform?
So you think the fundamentals are being compromised here, Nikhil, in a way, especially when he spoke about interoperability?
No, this is not fair market
fundamentals
operations.
Being compromised for UPI when it comes to UPI and WhatsApp's adoption of UPI here?
These are not fair market operations. It's as simple as that. Everyone needs to get the same opportunity, whether it's a wallet or a bank. They're all payments businesses, and they all need to have the same opportunity on UPI as the other. Right now, that's not the case. Every new player on UPI gets some amount of preferential treatment. That's also not the right approach. Let everybody come and fight on a level playing field. That's not being given to these guys.
So, Bipin, do you think like global tech giants like Google and Facebook are getting a leg up when it comes to capturing the larger piece of the first-time India internet users? Are you on the same page as Nikhil?
No, I don't agree with it. I think I think what is happening right now, what you have seen over the last 12 months or so, especially during demonetization, is a constant effort by NPCI to get the UPI engine moving. They started with actually some Indian startups, and then the government launched Beam. And then Google and Facebook, Google and WhatsApp have just come just now. Like WhatsApp is not fully launched. During all this time, if the argument is being made that NPCI was not open to other startups, etc. So I have not seen evidence of that. We have interacted with NPCI. In my view, in our interaction, at least they've been very, very supportive. As and when MobiKwik wants to go ahead with UPI, it can go ahead. So I can't speak for others and I can't speak for NPCI, but that's not the view I share.
Thank you so much, Bipin and Nikhil, for joining us on CNBC TV18 for this conversation. Thanks a lot.
Well, WhatsApp's entry there inspiring a lot of reactions, and if these initial reactions are any indication, exciting times ahead as far as digital payment space is concerned. However, my guess is that we're still to see the last word on this debate between foreign and Indian players. Time now for a quick break, but the race is on for the top post at IRDA. When we return, we get you an exclusive insight, an exclusive report on the key contenders. Stay tuned. A very good evening once again and welcome back. Let's now take a look at how trade panned out on Dalal Street today. A solid start to the day gave way to a sharp slide in the afternoon. The Sensex ended almost 300 points in the red, while the Nifty gave up the most important 10,500 mark. The Nifty Bank as well as the Nifty Mid-Cap 100 fell more than 1%. This was the second consecutive day when both indices dragged the market lower. That drop in the market coming under the shadow of a feud between the Singapore and Indian exchanges. Today, the New York-based MSCI has condemned the move by Indian exchanges to cut off supply of data to SGX in Singapore. The index creator and manager says the move is negative with respect to accessibility of the Indian equity market for international investors. According to MSCI, the restrictions are inconsistent with the practices of any other market in their emerging market index series and could result in unprecedented trade disruptions in markets around the world. Let's shift focus now onto a CNBC TV18 exclusive. We learned from sources that the race for new IRDA chief has entered the final lap. The selection committee has shortlisted 8 candidates and they will be interviewed over the next 3 days. Remember, the current chairman T.S. Vijayan retires on 21st of February. Yash Jain now joins us with a list of shortlisted candidates. Yash.
Well, the race for the next IRDA chairman is getting increasingly interesting as we move closer to that date of February 21st when the current IRDA chairman retires. Now, the latest that we're given to understand here is that the selection committee headed by the Cabinet Secretary P.K. Sinha has shortlisted around 8 candidates for the position of next IRDA chairman. And in terms of the candidates which have been shortlisted from the insurance industry, we are given to understand that Mr. G. Srinivasan, who is the chairman and managing director of New India Assurance, as well as very interestingly V.K. Sharma, who is the current LIC chairman. These two have been shortlisted for the position of next IRDA chairman. Also, if you talk about the bureaucratic circle, from there Mr. Rajiv Sharma, who is the Chief Secretary for the state of Telangana, as well as Ratna Prabha, who is the Chief Secretary for the state of Karnataka. These two have been shortlisted for the position of next IRDA chairman. From this point, we are given to understand that there will be an interview process for these shortlisted candidates, which will happen over the next 3 days, and a final call on the name of the next IRDA chairman may be expected anytime post February 18th. Now, V.K. Sharma and G. Srinivasan have replied to CNBC TV18 story saying that it's quite premature to comment as they do not have an official government confirmation on the same, and Rajiv Sharma and Ratna Prabha could not be reached out for a comment.
So the next 3 days critical in deciding the leadership position at IRDA. Now, the other big story in focus today is the setback to Fortis healthcare promoters Malvinder and Shivinder Singh. The Supreme Court today rejected their application challenging the Delhi High Court order, which held that the 3,500 crore arbitral award in favor of Japanese pharma company Daiichi Sankyo was enforceable. The Supreme Court has said that it is not inclined to grant relief to the appeal made by Singh brothers. Further, the Apex Court added that it did not find any glaring error in the order given by the Delhi High Court. Well, time now to slip into a very short break, but up ahead on the show, the acute shortage of sand takes a toll on construction activity in Chennai. Can the Supreme Court's intervention revive the real estate sector in the southern states? Special report on the other side. Well, welcome back. Over the last few months, construction activity in Chennai has taken a hit. This time, it's because of a shortage in the supply of river sand, which is used to make mortar. Now, CNBC TV18's Jude Sanith reports that apart from the threat of rise in prices, this shortage-induced rise in input costs has buried any signs of recovery in Chennai's long-suffering real estate market. Take a look.
The Supreme Court has come to the rescue of Chennai's real estate developers by overturning a Madras High Court order for a shutdown of all sand quarries owing to environmental concerns. But the relief will not remove 3 months of pain for the builder fraternity, which has seen losses of between 170 to 200 rupees per square foot of saleable space due to a shortage-driven spike in the price of river sand. This shortage has meant that an ongoing residential project of 75,000 to 1 lakh square feet stands to lose between 1.2 and 2 crore rupees, and the timing could not have been worse.
Launches have dipped to the tune of 13%, sales have dipped to the tune of 4%. So this is not a right time for developers also to increase the price.
Experts say even the Apex Court's ruling may not help matters much. That's because according to a December 8th order by the Tamil Nadu government, the sale of readily available imported sand can take place only through the Public Works Department. And that monopoly will keep prices high and supplies on a short leash. With river sand in short supply, Chennai's real estate developers are being forced to take a good hard look at the prices of upcoming residential projects. In fact, we learned that the next fiscal year could see homes in Chennai dearer by close to 250 to 300 rupees per square foot on the back of increased sand prices, coupled with an expected spike in other material costs.
Currently, we are absorbing it because most of the projects are ongoing and or at the completion stages which are there. 2019, I see definitely a strong case for an increase in price of apartments of anywhere between 5 to 10%.
Builders have got no choice than passing on to the end consumer. So definitely we will end up increasing our cost by 200 to 250 rupees on just because of sand alone.
This does not bode well for a market that is already struggling with low demand, and developers say that unless the state government steps in with easier access to sand, construction and development activity may take a big hit. In Chennai, Jude Sanith.
Well, Well, more pain in store for the Chennai real estate space. Let's shift focus now onto the digital space. It's not even been a year old, but Paytm Mall has already clocked over $3 billion in sales. This has spurred the company to target a doubling of growth next year. CNBC TV18's Rukmini Rao and Arundhati Ramanan report on the game plan to achieve this ambitious target. Take a look.
Paytm Mall. It's India's largest O2O, that's online to offline retail player, and it has brought over 15 million retail shops onto its online platform. Started with an initial funding of $200 million from Alibaba Group and CEF funds, the company's first year of operation has seen some major milestones being crossed.
We have actually achieved 3 billion plus GMV, which we had set ourselves as a target for the end of the year. So we would be closing around the similar number by the end of the year. And the first year has been really great. And in fact, in the last 7 to 8 months, we have been able to double our market share of the commerce business in this country.
One big difference between Paytm Mall and online marketplaces like Flipkart and Amazon is that Paytm Mall does not hold any inventory for its sellers. But when it comes to growth categories, there's hardly any difference. Just like its rivals, Paytm Mall's growth comes from mobiles, laptops, western wear for women, and men's formal attire. But two areas that have worked well for Paytm Mall are the impulse purchases segment and the FMCG space. So it's no surprise that it's these two segments that have become focus areas for further growth. In addition, the company is banking on scale and reach augmentation from acquisitions like the recent acquisitions of Nearby and Little.
Definitely, it's a scale game. This is a long haul. Like it is going to be a fight which is going on for a long time, and there's a lot of innovation left. There's the whole retail ecosystem's technology enablement is at such a rudimentary stage that there is a huge opportunity available right now, and more there will be scale players which will be the sort of people who will be leading these innovations.
Here, Paytm Mall has an advantage because other O2O players like Zopper, Zopnow and Kiran 11 are finding it difficult to build scale. Experts say Paytm Mall will also be helped by any step towards the integration of other Alibaba-funded retail ventures like Big Basket. With Rukmini Rao in Bengaluru, in Mumbai, Arundhati Ramanan.
Well, with that, it's a wrap on this edition of India Business Hour. Thank you for watching. Have a good night.